As this year's United Nations General Assembly High-Level Week kicks off, African voices are already setting the tone. The two-day Unstoppable Africa 2025 Summit, hosted by the Global Africa Business Initiative, wrapped up with powerful calls for investment, innovation, and inclusive growth across the continent. Arise News is a media partner for the event, and our international correspondent, Adefemi Akinsanya, was there for the finale of what is fast becoming a fixture on the global calendar.
That's a wrap on day two, the grand finale of the 2025 edition of Unstoppable Africa. Over the past 2 days, we have witnessed bold ideas and powerful resolution and the undeniable spirit of a continent on the rise. From game-changing investment to groundbreaking innovation, the momentum is real. And it's just the beginning. So from Arise News to around the world, this is a reminder to the visionaries, the game changers, the leaders, that Africa's future is now, and it's unstoppable. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News, New York City.
Joining us now for a brief and a review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Adefemi in New York. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Dr. Rubin. How are you? Good morning to you all. Hope everybody is doing very well.
Yes, we are.
Good morning.
As you've seen, we have...
Femi, I have a song for you quickly.
Morning, Rufai.
I have a song for you quickly. Adefemi, Nani, New York,
Go ahead.
Natty Dread. When you look to the right, look to the left.
Very apt. Good morning. Why are we so unserious here today? Goodness gracious. Don't you guys know it's very early in the morning here? The sun hasn't even risen yet. Good morning to you, Ayo, as well. See, let me tell you what is happening. Now, getting into all of this now, we know that we are just a day away from Vice President Kashim Shettima addressing the United Nations General Assembly at the Great Debate. He did arrive late on Sunday, as we already know, but on Monday, he did participate in a series of side events. One of them was an event hosted by the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. He was, of course, the guest of honor. That event was a call for more collaboration between Nigerian ministries and different international ones. So in the room, you had British representation, you had American representation, and essentially across a stream of different industries, there are putting on the case that Nigeria is open for business. This is something that was reiterated by the Vice President when he delivered his remarks at the event. But actually, as he was on his way out, I got the opportunity to speak to him very, very quickly. He was in a rush, and ask him what we can expect from his comments at the Great Debate. Naturally speaking, he talked about the Nigerian population and its influence on the future, and that's really informed his perception on this debate around Nigeria having a seat on the permanent United Nations Security Council. Let's take a listen to what the Vice President had to say.
It's for the sake of equity, justice, and fairness, Africa should have a fairer representation in the UN Security Council. Naturally, when you talk of Africa, Nigeria is Africa and Africa is Nigeria. I mentioned earlier on that 1 out of every 4 black men is a Nigerian. And by 2050, 1 out of every 3 black men will be a Nigerian. And by the end of the century, 1 out of every 2 black men will be so it's almost our natural right, our birthright. We deserve to be there. Not that we are begging to be there. We ought to be there. We deserve to be there. And in the fullness of time, we should vindicate our position as the greatest economy in Africa.
So very strong words there from the Vice President. It's clear that he believes that Nigeria should have a place on this permanent Security Council. And as you heard him say, that when you're looking ahead to the future, when we're looking at the black diaspora or black people, the vast majority of them are definitely moving into the nationality or the lineage of being Nigerian. So that really informs his decision on whether or not Nigeria should be involved in this debate on whether or not a permanent seat on the UN Security Council should go to a Global South country, but specifically Nigeria being one of them. All righty, well, moving on to what else we were expecting at the United Nations Great Debate. We know that a whole host of countries will start delivering their remarks. Among them, I think that's one thing that everyone's really setting their eyes on is the fact that Donald Trump will be delivering his remarks in person at some point later today. Now, the conversations, the speeches will start early in the afternoon, around 1 p.m. And it is likely, of course, that earlier on in the day, because there are a whole host of countries across the Middle East, South America, Brazil will also be delivering their remarks that will be, of course, giving their own outlook from the vantage point of their own countries. What's interesting about United States is that they have not been shy, well, not so much the United States, but the Trump administration has not been shy about its criticism of the United Nations. Trump has said quite openly that he feels as though the United Nations is not being run well. He has been cutting funding. He has been disrupting the world of diplomacy when it comes to aid and international aid coming from the United States to the rest of the world. So it will be interesting to see whether or not he, casts the United Nations, especially while it is separating and celebrating 80 years of its existence. It would be something to look out for, this dynamic between the US president and whether or not he still feels the United Nations could seek to improve in different areas, and whether or not the organization is not being run properly, as he has previously said. In terms of African representation at the Great Debates today, we do know that South African President Cyril Ramaphosa will be delivering his remarks. Now, if we break down what we're expecting him to say, it will be something along the lines of course, South African and African participation on the global stage. We do know that he is, of course, the chair of the G20 South Africa meetings. And that is something that he definitely wants to push in terms of things that are specific to his own country. We can expect that he will be talking about greater collaboration when it comes to climate financing and climate change support. But definitely when we're looking at his agenda across the week, definitely tomorrow, we do know that he will be participating in conversations about equality, gender equality, and youth-led support initiatives. So it's going to be a very busy schedule for many people who are here wanting to listen in on the Great Debate and hopefully catch a glimpse of their own president and definitely be able to listen into what their presidents have to say. There's so much pomp and circumstance when it comes to the United Nations General Assembly that sometimes the real anticipation of what are you going to do, what are you going to say, what's going to be the end product of all of these meetings is definitely going to be on the forefront of people's minds. So we will, as ever, be following the beginning of these speeches and throughout them, and look forward to hearing what these countries have to say for themselves. Those are your stories on the World Brief. Love to hear your thoughts before we move on to the papers.
Okay, all of this is happening at a moment where something historic happened yesterday, and I'm sure you saw it. Palestinian embassy in the UK, declaration of a Palestinian state by a couple of countries. Now, when you check on the ladder at the United Nations, you are having as many more countries now declaring that they accept a Palestinian state vis-a-vis also the Israeli state. So the numbers are almost closing up. But the question will be, and that's the hypocrisy of the UN, the fact that a lot of them have kept quiet or have not been forceful enough in the face of the hazard Israel is causing, and what they're doing now, that they're trying to demarcate across the E2 line to be able to ensure that across the West Bank that the Palestinian state is not real. It doesn't become reality. And we are talking about all of this amidst a Trump that is distorting the world order. We have seen how he brags about settling wars, but he can't say, but Russia made him a fool, Putin made him a fool. Till today, talks have stalled as regards the Ukrainian conversation because the follow-up talks never happened because obviously Putin was playing him. And we're also seeing him emboldening Israel at a time, mass killings going on in Gaza and the likes, and all sorts of atrocities happening. We are also seeing, the triumphalism of some sort of the right-wing world order and a great level of Christian nationalism that is hampering the peace of America. We saw what happened to Jimmy Kimmel, and we saw what happened recently when people did speak up as regards what happened. And you can see now Jimmy Kimmel will be restored by Tuesday. So this is the kind of world we face. So I really am at sea to what a Trump wants to see that's going to convince the world, because America has lost the morality on many issues of the world today. It can't be seen as a bastion of morality in healthcare and science. Just yesterday, it was said that President Trump is trying to push to link Tylenol with autism, that pregnant women should not use Tylenol, and a lot of doctors are kicking against paracetamol and autism. So all sorts of things are happening at this point in time. And I just hope that, the debates can be a bastion of civility and education. But how will it be? The same Trump denied the Palestinian Authority a visa to be able to make representation there. So that's the world we live in. It's a very disunited world at the United Nations.
Well, Caroline Leavitt has White House spokesperson has said that by recognizing the Palestinian state is almost as a reward to Palestine and endorsing their actions in the last year. So obviously, the position of Washington hasn't moved in any way, despite the fact that the UK, France, Canada, Australia, Portugal have all recognized the Palestinian state. But beyond that, of course, like you said, Adefemi, yes, our own vice president, who is representing the president as well, will be speaking today at the annual general debate. This is the 80th anniversary. You talked about the theme, Better Together. And the annual general meeting is an opportunity for world leaders to come together to discuss some of the most pertinent issues globally and, of course, in their own country. So it'll be great to see, to hear what he has to say. I love that you're able to engage him briefly there, where he talked about Nigeria getting a seat on the UN Security Council. I think it's about time. We're talking about it off air just before we came on that. We keep going to these meetings in New York, UNGA. But what has that yielded for us as a continent and then as a nation? And we often talk about that when we talk about diplomatic relationships. It's not just about having a representation there. It's important, but it's also very important to see what role we play and to what extent it's an advantage to us as a people. Of course, there are a number of side events. I looked at Unstoppable Africa that you talked about. I know the Fidelity Bank, fair as well is also an opportunity for Nigeria to showcase small businesses. But there are also some heavyweight things that haven't happened yet for us. But the most anticipated speech at the general debate, of course, would be that of President Donald Trump. For a theme that says Better Together, it is quite ironic because he has cut funding to the United Nations, and he's probably going to be aggressive in his speech, talking about, speaking against globalist institutions. So let's see how that will play out as, the UN is celebrating 80 years at UNGA and trying to get people, to come together, get more people on board, get countries to work together. And the US is saying, you know what, I think your time is done and we're not interested in this institution or institutions like the World Health Organization and others like that. But again, he's going to be speaking at about BST, I think about 2:50 this afternoon. We will be taking that speech live. We will be looking at it here on Arise News, and so it'll be interesting to see what he has to say to Americans and the world.
Okay. The theme for this year's UNGA is Better Together, 80 years and more for peace, development, and human rights. So you are likely to find most of the speakers, going around that territory. And Vice President Kashim Shettima is speaking today. First, let's deal with the domestic part of it. I've seen some Nigerians saying, oh, why is the Vice President the one that is going? Why is he not the President? No, it's a non-issue. If the President wanted, he could even have delegated that responsibility to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. It is important, more important, that Nigeria is in the room. And Vice President Kashim Shettima has proven again and again that he has the capacity, the heft, to be able to navigate this territory. I've seen him in action in Davos, and I know that he's very familiar with that territory. So the President has not done anything wrong by saying that his Vice President should go and represent Nigeria at that occasion. That's number one point. Number two, you were alluding to what is likely to talk about, a permanent seat for Nigeria on the UN Security Council. Now, almost every year when we go to UNGA, it's always there. However, it's not just Nigeria that is asking for permanent seat. Now, the reality is that UN Security Council, the geography of it, the politics of it, the sociology of it has changed. It has 15 members. 5 of those members were, the allies that won World War II. But between 1946 and now, the situation is different. Even losers in World War II, Brazil, Japan, add to it India, perhaps. India was not one of the losers, though. But they are the people contributing more to peacekeeping operations. They are the ones contributing more money to peacekeeping operations of the UN. And they have been saying that they want a voice on that permanent Security Council. Now, take Italy. Italy also lost in the war. Italy led a movement called Uniting for Consensus, where you have countries like Australia, Canada, Turkey, all these countries say, look, we are part of these United Nations. It's not just about the 5 allies anymore. It's about other people. And we're in it. Germany is there. Brazil is there. Number 3, Africa, under Kofi Annan in 2004, came up with this proposal that, look, Africa also deserves at least 1 seat. In fact, Africa is no longer asking for 1 seat that you will share between Nigeria, Egypt, and South Africa. In what is called the Azwenini Declaration, followed by the Cité Declaration, the African Union is saying that Africa is entitled to 2 permanent seats and 5 non-permanent seats on that Security Council. So if, the Vice President is going to talk about that, that will be consistent in terms of Nigeria's foreign policy. However, Nigeria is also likely to talk about climate action, talk about financial crime, cyber crime, and I've not seen a copy of the speech, but somewhere in that speech, characteristically, the Tinubu administration is going to boast about reforms and what Nigeria is doing to contribute to security within the Sahel region. Nigeria having been most recently the chair of ECOWAS. As for Cyril Ramaphosa, now President Cyril Ramaphosa is going to make a case for multilateralism, I believe. He's going to talk about South Africa standing up for the people of Hamas. He's going to talk about the case at the ICJ, which South Africa led and was insisting that, look, Israel is a pariah nation under international law. He's going to say all of that and make a case for the global South as current chairman of the G20. As for Trump, between 2017 and 2021, he was at that UN General Assembly 4 times. He was preaching America first. He was preaching against globalism. He was promoting isolationism. I imagine that he's going to do exactly the same thing. He's going to preach America first. He's going to rail against, multilateralism and defend the choices that America has made under his watch. And perhaps he will also boast that he has solved 7 conflicts in 7 months and that he must be given the Nobel Peace Prize. Whether that will happen or not remains to be seen.
Dr. Abati, Azerbaijan and Albania.
7 conflicts in 7 months that he said he solved.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
He's not getting the joke.
Well, we'll have to see what he has to say. I'm sure. All righty. Well, let's move on to newspapers very quickly. Let's take a look at the front page of This Day. This Day this morning does lead with a response from the presidency, which says that President Tinubu does not have any plans to remain in power beyond 2031. That is, of course, provided he is re-elected come 2027. This is in response to comments from former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai, who accused the president of planning to be president for life. We also see on the front page of This Day the picture headline, which shows the recently returned Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara pictured alongside the president himself, with Fubara saying that he has made peace with Wike, his political godfather. Now, the nation this morning does also continue this rhetoric of peace and reconciliation, and this peace declaration does make the lead story on the nation this morning. Moving on to the New Telegraph, though, it does lead with the US mission in Nigeria explicitly warning Nigerian government officials involved in corruption that it will be denied US visas. Meanwhile, the Daily Trust leads with the Reserved Seats for Women Bill, also called the Special Seats Bill, which aims to amend various sections of the 1999 Constitution to create additional exclusive legislative seats for women. The article says that that bill is progressing, it's gaining ground. And then just quickly, let's take a look at the front page of the Punch. It is more environmental concerns on the front page of the Punch, as flooding has claimed the lives of 232 people and left 122,000 people displaced. Those are your paper headlines this morning.
All right. Okay, so Rufai?
Okay. So a couple of things, like I said before. It's not that we just want to say these things. Nigeria has a history of leaders that want to sit tight. And yes, if the President Tinubu camp can say, oh, El Rufai is this, he has no right, he's saying because of politics. We cannot say we know President Tinubu more than El Rufai, that was his political associate over the years. And President Tinubu has also showed us that hand in Lagos. Since 1999, he's been the Lord Almighty of Lagos. So we have stated that part, and we have let that part be. As regards the United Nations, we want a seat on the Security Council, but we don't have ambassadors till dates.
All right, talking about the New Telegraph and the story in the New Telegraph, the US mission talking about visas and denying visas to corrupt politicians. It was a very good conversation I listened to earlier on, and I would encourage people to do so. Daybreak earlier today, and they had a robust conversation about that. But I think very important was around the fact that the first step ought to be the repatriation of our funds. It's not enough to deny them visas, but it's also important to ensure that the monies that are already on U.S. soil, because of course the United States is a destination for these looted funds, there should be some kind of arrangement with our government to return the money to us, whilst they're also talking about visa bans or visa denials to these officials. Bring back our money.
Okay, very, very quickly. I think the debate about UN reform is very important. And some of the things that will be coming out of this general debate that is starting today will be the future of peacekeeping operations, one of the original functions of the UN Security Council, the council that can pass binding resolutions on members. It will be about artificial intelligence. It will be about global conflicts, be it in Sudan or Ukraine or, Gaza. These are the things that would dominate the whole issue about international cooperation. And then the future, the reform of the UN itself. Is the UN still serving its original purpose to ensure peace, to promote diversity, inclusion, and multilateralism? But of course, the United States continues to undermine that institution. Now, finally, the current Secretary General of the UN is leaving in 2026. You are likely, please look out, that there will be some lobbying, among countries that want to produce the next UN Secretary General. And please keep an eye on the Nigerian delegation, who may well disappear into the shopping quarters of New York and not pay enough attention to their assignment. They are not there for shopping. They are there to promote Nigeria and defend strategic interests. Okay?
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Speaking from experience.
I keep a close eye.
Thank you so much.